School District's meeting of the Board of Trustees. The meeting of the Board of Trustees is the meeting of the board that the public is allowed to attend. As provided, Ysleta ISD Policy BED, we invite members of the public to make comments during the citizens' input portion at that start of the meeting to the instructions provided with the electronic posting notice of our meeting. Legally, the board may listen but may not enter into discussion on matters in citizen input. Remind everyone that this is a board meeting, often attended by students, and ask that we all conduct ourselves in a manner that best represents the values and traditions of the Ysleta Independent School District. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6:03 p.m. We have a quorum with Chris Hernandez, Mike Dwyer, Connie Woodruff, and myself, Catherine Lucero. Trustee Hagerty, Trustee Ochoa, Trustee Bustillos are unable to join and are considered excused. And now, it has become a tradition to honor our nation at each of our board meetings by presenting the colors, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and then posting the colors. The colors tonight are being presented by the Junior ROTC Color Guard from Del Valle High School. The Color Guard commander is Cadet Major Oscar Escobar. The other Color Guard members are Cadet Commander Sergeant Major Nathan Morales, Cadet Sergeant First Class Abraham Gastorniera, Cadet Corporal Andrew Madrid. The pledge leader is Cadet Colonel Leslie Zambrano. Will you please stand for the presentation of colors, the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance, and a moment of silence. Please remain standing until the cadets have departed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now please join me for the Pledge of Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Dr. Latorre, do we have recognitions and introductions this evening?
Good evening, Secretary Lucero, members of the board, and esteemed guests. We do, and I'd invite our Chief Human Capital Management Officer, Ms. Bobby Russell Garcia, to lead in our recognitions and introductions this evening.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. De La Torre and members of the board. Can you please make your way to the dais? We have 2 recognitions for you this evening. Thank you. Our first recognition tonight is in honor of the Ysleta High School baseball player Evan Martinez and baseball coach Renee Solis, who were both honored for excellence and outstanding leadership by the El Paso Baseball Hall of Fame. At the Hall of Fame ceremony, Evan won the Joe Haig High School Player of the Year Award for a dominant 2024 season on the mound and in left field. The senior southpaw posted a .442 batting average with 6 doubles, 7 triples, 2 home runs, and 35 RBIs. On the mound, Evan had a 7-2 record with a 2.71 earned run average, allowing 19 earned runs and striking out 62 hitters. El Paso's Baseball Hall of Fame also honored Coach Renee Solis with this year's Nemo Herrera High School Coach of the Year Award. In 6 years of coaching baseball at Ysleta High School, the Indians have enjoyed 6 consecutive winning seasons, securing 2 district championships and 4 area playoff appearances. The 2024 season was particularly remarkable, with the Indians achieving a 9-1 district record and a 25-6 overall mark. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our El Paso Baseball Hall of Fame winners from Ysleta High School, beginning with senior Evan Martinez. Also, please welcome Coach Renee Solis. They are accompanied by Principal Amelia Garcia. Let's hear it one more time for our amazing Indians. Tonight's final recognition honors Beller High School student Orlando Baca, who earned a Division I rating in piano solo and captured a gold medal at this year's UIL Texas State Solo and Ensemble Contest in Austin. This is the second consecutive year that Orlando has earned a Division I rating at the state level for his exceptional skills in playing the piano, which he has studied for more than a decade. Orlando is also a member of the National Fraternity of Student Musicians, president of the Beller High School National Honor Society, and a member of the school's Health Occupation Students of America Club. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for our gold medal state winner in piano, Beller High School student Orlando Baca. He is accompanied by Principal Jake Valtiera. Let's hear it one more time for Orlando. This concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Evan's a good-looking boy. He's over 6'5". Look like that.
It's time for citizens' input. We do not have anybody signed up to speak this time. For the board workshop, we continue to agenda review. We will now discuss agenda items as listed in the posted notice of the regular meeting of the Ysleta Independent School District Board of Trustees for October 16th, 2024. and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and/or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action on said items at the October 16th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting. Board of Trustees, consider approval for minutes. No questions. Board of Trustees workshop training on September 21st, 2024 at 8 a.m. Third item is 2024 district campus and improvement plans. Item number 4, accept monthly financial statements and bond project report for August 2024. Item number 5, approve award of YISD solicitation number 225001 RFP-RB for state property value appeal services.
Secretary Lucero, I would like to pull that item.
Can we go ahead and have that item pulled, please?
Absolutely. We'll pull it to the pulled consent, right? Not off the agenda.
Or you want it to move to action? Put on the action. No. Just pull it off, okay. Yeah. Approve a low attendance day waiver application for September 10th, 2024. Approve a low attendance day waiver application for September 23rd, 2024. Approve staff development minutes waiver application to TEA for all YISD campuses for professional development. Approve other waiver application to TA for Valle Verde Early College High School. Now to our action items. Donation to Mission Valley Elementary School. Authorization for sale of real property, actually number 2, authorization for sale of real property located near Caldwalder TLCC campus. And our last item will be closed session. The order of the agenda has been approved. May I have an electronic motion on the remaining consent agenda items listed on the agenda as recommended by the administration?
Madam Secretary, I move that we approve the remaining consent agenda items listed on this agenda as recommended by administration.
We have a motion by Trustee Woodward. Please read the motion. Oh, you already did.
I already did
Sorry.
that.
My apologies. This is my first time doing this, guys. Item passes with all yeses.
You need to tell them who seconded the
Oh,
motion.
the second was done by
Chris Hernandez.
Chris Hernandez. What a surprise. Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
Now we got to go.
I feel like I'm joking. Where is it? Okay. Number 5, approve award of YISD solicitation number 225001 RFP-RB for state property value appeal services. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, Secretary Lucero, thank you. First, I want to thank Dr. De La Torre, Ms. Leeper, for responding to my questions on this item. And I guess I just want to be clear that my underlying concern is that as much of any additional state funding that the district receives stays with the district, and that we are clear and transparent about the situation we're in now and whatever may arise of this appeal taking place. But could you give us a little background on the situation we're in?
Good evening,
Please.
Trustee Hernandez. Yes, sir. So as we mentioned in answer to your questions earlier today, this is a niche area of the law. And Linebarger happens to be an expert and has the staff necessary to accomplish this property tax appeal. So essentially what happens is that the local CAD establishes values. The state comptroller then looks at those values and they may have a different opinion of them. If they assess that our local property values are higher, we may get less state aid. And so Linebarger acts on our behalf to appeal those values, showing that our community is not in fact property rich, but is carrying their fair share as it is today. With this particular service, there is no fee if they don't recover additional aid for us. And any additional aid, we pay them 10% of what they recover or what they generate to the district. So no appeal, no win, no additional revenue to the district, no fee to the law firm. Only when they're successful in holding our values to be lower than the state assesses that they are, do we pay them anything. And if you don't mind, I'll bring David Solis, our comptroller, to the podium because he will have really detailed answers for you, more so than I may have. But in general, I think I've given you the context for what we are doing with this firm and why we need their services.
Thank you for that. And I think you partially answered this question, but I do see two brilliant lawyers right
Attorneys.
here for the district, and I was thinking maybe they'd be able to do this on behalf of the district. Would this be feasible?
So I will defer to Tony to answer. I would say I don't want, Ms. DeMata is brilliant, and she works very hard, long hours, and so I would hate to burden her with this additional work, especially when it's a niche part of the law. But Mr. Safi?
President Lucero, if I might, Anthony Safi. Our law firm, in fact, years ago, I'm back like in the 90s and very early 2000s, actually did property value study appeals for another El Paso County district. So I have some familiarity with the process. The thing to remember is a property value study appeal involves arguing to the state that the local values are valid. And typically what happens, you need to remember, the Central Appraisal District is under local pressure to keep values low. The Comptroller's Office is under pressure from the legislature to keep values high. And to the extent the final values as a result of the appeal are higher than the local values, that results in a loss in state aid. It is a highly technical process. It involves comparing the methodologies used for mass volume property appraisals utilized by the Central Appraisal District versus the methodologies used by the state. It requires a very detailed analysis, and frankly, it becomes largely an appraisal issue. There are some legal aspects to it. And so to do a good job, a law firm either needs to have in-house appraisal expertise or it needs to retain outside experts to assist. In the case of these two law firms that made proposals, I'm not commenting on one versus the other, but typically they have the expertise needed in-house, including typically former employees of the Comptroller's Office that worked on property value study appeals for the state. And so they're very familiar with the methodologies used by the state and the weaknesses in those methodologies, potential weaknesses. And so in terms of the expertise, this is as described by Ms. Leeper, this is a niche area. There are very few law firms in Texas anymore that even try to do this work. And in terms of the expense, I'm confident that to have a law firm that doesn't routinely do this work undertake to do it would not be any less expensive to the district than retaining a firm that does it all the time on a statewide basis. Because a firm like that can enjoy the economies of scale that a firm that does not do it routinely would not be able to offer, nor does a firm that doesn't do it routinely have the same level and depth of expertise. So I appreciate the comment, Trustee Hernandez, appreciate the characterization, but I do think that the district would be well advised to retain a firm that does property value study appeals on a regular basis. I think that would be in the best interest of the district. Again, without commenting on the relative merits of the two firms that have submitted proposals.
Yes, Mr. Safi, thank you so much for that explanation. And I think it's very clear after hearing all that, it is in the district's best interest to use outside counsel for this. So that we're transparent, I want to, I guess I want a baseline. I want the number that, the amount of state aid that we will be receiving if we do not appeal, so that if the appeal is successful, we know what the amount was.
So you're talking about future amounts. I think Mr. Solis can comment on the amount we received on the most recent appeal, which was $687,000.
That is correct. So the 2024 preliminary property value study will not be released until the end of January, right before January 1st. So that'll be our first opportunity to appeal those property values. For comparison, as Ms. Leeper mentioned, last year in 2023, the initial value from the state was $7.936 billion. Through the successful appeals, we were able to reduce that down to $7.9 billion, which resulted in an additional state aid of about $687,000.
You're saying if the appeal is successful, we'd be expecting?
That's what it was last year. Again, for this year, it depends on that gap, that difference between the state value and our local property tax value.
So we're anticipating that gap. It hasn't been established yet.
Correct. So every year there is somewhat of a gap. What that gap is what we're appealing.
Okay. And if, but it's possible it might come out in January that we do not need to appeal?
It's possible, but probably not likely.
Okay. And this is a regular thing that it always happens? Okay. Well, I appreciate the patience. Okay. So in January, we'll know what that amount of state funding is because of the property value appraisal. Then we're going to appeal it, and it'll be that difference that the firm is going to get 10%.
It's actually the difference in state aid gained. So remember, we plug in the property value number from the state into the state formula, and whatever state aid we gain, then the firm typically gets about 10% of that.
Okay. On the contract, I saw 5% and 10%. 10% was for the appeal. When would they get the 5%?
So the 5% would be the continuing audits. So for each property value study, we have 3 years to audit those property value studies and gain additional state aid. So for like this year, the 2021 values can still be audited. So that's where we're at on that. So that's where the 5% would be. So they can go back up to 3 years to go ahead and still audit those value studies.
Okay. I just heard my colleagues say this happens every year. What are we usually seeing like in the past? 5
Sure.
years?
So last year, as Ms. Leeper mentioned, it was 687,000. The year before was 184,000. In 2021, we had 824,000. It all depends on, in years where it's been larger, it's because the state has come in with maybe additional homestead exemptions. You have to remember the values that are provided by the CAD are, as of July 25th, there are continuous appeals that are made that could reduce that value, and so they're able to provide those appeals to the state to lower our value from the state calculation.
Okay. And to be clear, I know it was already said, but I want to be very clear. If they are unsuccessful, they get paid zero, no matter
Correct.
any work, all the work they've done.
Correct, because it is contingent on the additional state aid that we get.
Okay. Are we able to have this reported to the board, perhaps in a workshop where we know the appeals? Does this
Yes,
always happen, or can we
absolutely.
make it happen?
So we haven't historically brought those reports to the board. We get them annually, but absolutely we can. And as David
Yeah, I
mentioned.
think that would be a good idea. I think
No.
anytime we can show that the district has worked hard and brought in additional state funding, I think we should be proud of that and show it to the public. And I'd really like to know about that. And we would never, so there's still other ways to get state funding. That state funding would never be confused with the state funding that was brought in by this law firm through their appeal, correct? We're able to not just get, well, this was our state funding for the year, and they get 10% of that, but they only get 10% of the additional state funding they got by reducing the value of the properties in the district.
Correct, so that's what they do. They actually place in the initial property value, and then they put in the appealed value. That appealed value will know somewhere in August, because the state has to certify those as of August based upon the appeals so that they can include it in the near final September report for the summary of finance. So we'll know that difference, and it's easily calculated and identifiable.
And you said that'd probably be.
What you're also asking is, if we get additional money through the state legislature, so say the basic allotment gets a small increase, or we get additional special education funding. Those are completely separate compartments of funding. They are unrelated, so they would never be confused. They go to the same place when they arrive at the district. They end up in the general fund, but they are differentiated, and you absolutely know what's as a result of property value appeals and what's as a result of an increase by TEA to the basic allotment or to the special education funding or any of those other funding mechanisms that we're going to talk about with the legislature in January.
Are there any restrictions on the state funding that is generated through property appraisal appeal, or does it go into the general fund?
It goes into the general fund just as the regular state aid does.
Okay, great. And would it be July when we would have this workshop about whether this appeal was successful or not?
It would probably be sometime early September that we
September?
would, because they would release the.
So the September or October meeting of 2025? Okay, that's great. I think that's all my questions, and I'd be happy to support this item.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to thank Trustee Hernandez for really diving deep into what this involved and how important it is that we as a board make decisions that are going to bring more funding to our district. It's a very important decision. We need to fight for every single dollar, especially considering where we're at with education. So thank you, Trustee Hernandez.
Yes, Mrs. Leeper, you know what question I'm going to ask you. The legislature goes back into session January 7th, is that correct? And would you have an estimate or a timeline when they might decide on per diem per child in our district, or?
So I will tell you, the council sitting to my right follows this much more closely than I do. But I can tell you they were having committee meetings this past week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were discussing special education funding and the basic allotment. But no calendar, no timeline, no. I think, as Dr. De La Torre has said frequently, until vouchers are addressed, they're not going to tell us anything about education funding.
Okay.
Ms. Damata?
Trustee Dwyer, board members, Dr. De La Torre. So typically, the legislature, once January comes around, they've already started drafting their bills, that they know which way they're going to go, who's going to sponsor them. They do have different calendar deadlines as it relates to the bills. So we may see a surprise, not at the initiation of the legislative session, but sometime thereafter. We're keeping an eye on it. It's something that we're all monitoring, all the ISDs and all my counterparts at the ISDs across Texas. And in some cases, we're also tapping into legislative directors at different ISDs who are keeping even a much closer look at these things, communicating with different legislative members. And so we'll know more pretty soon. I do receive a legislative report from the Texas Association of School Boards. As soon as I get anything about basic allotment, I'm going to make sure to forward that to you all so you have kind of like the insiders information on where it looks like these bills are going and who's going to sponsor and who's going to support them and whatnot. But yeah, we'll know pretty soon. What I do on my end as in-house is once I'm informed about a certain bill, for example, if it's a House Bill 1 for basic allotment, I track it on what's called the Texas Legislature online, and I can see what the draft looks like, and I can see any changes that are made to the bill. And that's where you start seeing negotiation, politics at play. So the very first draft of a bill is going to look different in most cases, if it's a contentious one, from what is ultimately approved or vetoed or final. And so I like to track all those things, and I do so to make sure that if there's a reason to step in, to make calls, we're being proactive. And so I'll certainly be updating the board as the legislative session comes closer. And if we need to discuss anything during a regular board meeting or maybe put together some sort of resolution in support or in opposition, I serve at your will. I'm happy to work with Mr. Safi, but we'll keep you all apprised of any developments.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other discussion on this item? May I have a motion?
Madam Secretary, I move that we approve award of YISD solicitation number 225001 RFP-RB for state property value appeal services.
I have a motion made by Ms. Connie Woodruff. Trustee Hernandez with a second. Motion passes with all yeses. I could just say motion passes. Yeah, got it. Yeah, I think I'll say that. Okay. Action item number 1, donation to Mission Valley Elementary School. Is there any discussion? I would like to say a few words. I would like to thank for Feed the Children for the backpacks and donations with school supplies at Mission Valley Elementary School. Each and every donation and supplies to our students is extremely appreciated by the district, by our parents, by our students. It makes a difference, and we appreciate it. Any other discussion? I'll go ahead and make this motion. May I have a second? Secretary Lucero will make the motion, seconded by Ms. Connie Woodruff. Oh, I move to ratify and accept a donation of backpacks with school supplies from Feed the Children valued at $5,000 to benefit students in need at Mission Valley Elementary School. Motion passes. Authorization for sale, agenda item number 2, authorization for sale of real property located near Caldwater TLCC campus. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Forgive me. I feel like I didn't do my homework on this, but are we, what is the amount?
$2,800?
Okay. And it says here to carry out a purpose that benefits the public interest of the district. Can you speak a little bit to that, about the water lines?
So El Paso Water Utility was seeking an easement in order to improve the canal near Cadwalder or TLCC. And I think it's both sewer drainage and canal water improvement, water supply and sewage removal at this particular corner of the Cadwalder property. The property, on page 45, you can see an aerial view of the sliver that's in the corner that they're asking for use of. And because it can be challenging to deal with easements in the future, we just opted to sell this small sliver to them because it's unusable for any other purpose. We don't park in it. Sometimes I've seen people there in overflow parking, but it's dirt. It's not paved. It's not even compressed chat. It is off in the very farmost corner of the property. And as you can see in the agenda booklet, it's nothing to the overall use of the property.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
It also shows we're great partners with our fellow providers in the city. Do I have a motion? If there's no other discussion, we'll have a motion. I have a motion by Ms. Connie Woodruff.
I move to approve adoption of a resolution for the sale of a portion of YISD property located at 7980 Alameda near Cadwalder TLCC to the El Paso Water Utilities Public Service Board and further delegate authority to the superintendent or designee to negotiate and execute related contract for sale and other matters incidental thereto, and subject to final review and approval by in-house counsel.
We have a second by Trustee Hernandez. Motion passes.
Secretary Lucero, we needed Mike Dwyer's vote. Trustee Dwyer.
Oh, wait. Oh, you already did it.
It was missing at the time.
Thank you. Interesting. Closed session. The Board of Trustees has determined that a closed meeting of the Board of Trustees is required to discuss the items set forth in the posted agenda for this date. Such closed meeting is authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 55.001, including but not limited to the sections and purposes covered by the following sections of the Texas Government Code: 55.071, 72, 73, 74, 76, 82, 127, 821, 83, 84, 87, and 89. Should any final action, decision, or vote be required with regard to any matter considered in closed session, the final action, decision, or vote shall be in the open meeting or at subsequent public meetings with notice. The board will now go into closed session in the Rio Grande room at 6:40 p.m. We're now back in regular session. I reconvene this meeting of the Board of Trustees with Chris Hernandez, Mike Dwyer, Connie Woodruff, and myself at 7 p.m. Action item, consider approval of district-wide intruder detection audit report findings. May I have a motion?
Madam Secretary, I move to approve the district-wide intruder detection audit report findings as discussed in closed session.
That is seconded by Trustee Hernandez. Motion passes. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.